Welcome to the next franchise undertaking that we have here on MDS 625, and that's going to be a realistic, somewhat long-term rebuild of the Detroit Tigers. I'm a Michigan native. One of my favorite teams growing up was the 2006 Detroit Tigers, who splashed what had been a miserable franchise for pretty much my entire childhood back onto the national scene and blitzed their way to the World Series. And the promise of those years, that 8-year run or so where the Tigers were one of the best teams in baseball, is something that I think everyone in Michigan and in the Detroit area would want to get back to as soon as possible. So I'm going to try and rebuild the team, but there are some caveats in terms of how I'm going to do that. First things first, just some table setting. Settings wise, I'm going to be playing on Legend. If you tuned in for any of the Rays, Mets, Moneyball franchise, same difficulties and same general settings across the board for that. So I'm going to be using timing as my hitting mechanism, and then I am going to use classic pitching instead of the analog. Sliders are going to be slightly tweaked. I'm going to be using sliders from online username Armayak222. You can find him on Operation Sports. He's got a pretty detailed thread there going through his sliders. So nothing too out of the ordinary, too crazy. I also made a couple tweaks on these just because I'm going to be using quick counts, which means that pitch counts for starters and relievers too, but more pertinently starters, is going to be higher. So I want them to have higher stamina. I think there's actually one thing I need to tweak here. So let me do that real quick. Yeah, so this is 6, and that's 6, and that's 6. I actually think I need to load those sliders, because those are my old ones. So 1 second, let me load those sliders up. So like I said, Rmiok, RMIOK222, pretty active thread on operationsports.com if you are interested in checking those sliders out. So let's see, yeah, this is right on the money. So yeah, I don't think the sliders are anything crazy, anything out of the ordinary. This one is necessary to get both the user and CPU base runners up to the level of success that they're at in real life now because of the rule changes. So I did turn down trade frequency a bit just to try and keep the CPU from lighting themselves on fire too much. But like I said, nothing too crazy or too out of the ordinary with any of these slider choices. So there's that. And then the roster I'm going to be using is the TrueSim roster project version 2. I also found those on Operation Sports, so it sounds like a bunch of people from the community over there contributed to these, but they're found under username Cycloniac24 in the vault. So they did a great job of fleshing out the minor leagues for every team in the game, and also adding appropriate equipment and tweaking ratings and secondary positions and all those other little nuances that are easy to overlook. So they did a great job with that, so shout out to them. And while we're here, let me load that roster up just so I have it ready to go. And it's gonna have me do it here anyways. Alright, so like I said, the Tigers are our team. Budget, if we compare it to other teams in the league, seems to be a little bit above average, but pretty much smack dab in the middle of the rest of the teams. It's a far cry from the way things used to be during those glory days of 06 to 14, where the Tigers were one of the biggest spenders in the league. Mike Ilitch's son, Chris Ilitch, who's the owner now, seems to be much more interested in the margins and supposed profitability of the teams he owns as opposed to just winning like his father was. So if we take a look at the roster, we do have some decent young pitching. It's interesting because some of the names that you see near the top of this overall list are a lot different than a lot of Tiger fans would have expected a couple years ago. If you said, hey, we got some good young pitching that's seemingly in possession of some promise and might be able to make a difference in the majors pretty soon. Spencer Turnbull kind of came out of nowhere. He threw a no-hitter a couple years ago, but he was not a super highly touted guy. Reese Olson also has sort of emerged from nowhere. Joey Wentz is a lefty that in real life has been getting lit up a lot, but in this game, decent overall, decent potential, and a young lefty. Similar criteria for Tarik Skubal. Although Skubal has struggled with injuries, he has emerged as one of the best young southpaws, not only in the Tigers organization, but I would say one of the more highly touted ones in the league entirely as sort of a young up-and-coming guy. He's already 26 though, so that young part doesn't qualify as much anymore. Javier Baez is the highest rated position player and is also in possession of an albatross of a contract. He signed for 4 years after this one at $23.3 million. And so I would think in real life, one of the biggest imperatives for the Tigers is trying to move off of his contract if they can. They probably won't be able to. And that is going to be one of my biggest imperatives, but here is where I'll give you some context about one of those caveats I mentioned earlier about this rebuild. In order for me to execute a trade in this franchise, I am going to adhere to the values of players that can be found on a website called baseballtradevalues.com. You can also find them on Twitter, and I don't know if they have other social media. And it's a really cool website. Shout out to the team over there who has built this out. They've essentially created a value for every player in every organization, both major leagues and minor leagues, that is a reflection of not only their ability as observed or I suppose as scouted, and they're kind of for prospects like their ranking on different prospect lists, but also their stats and their performance in real games, and also their contract and their age. So Javier Baez, in this game, it would really not be that hard to move him. I could very easily trade him to any number of teams and actually sometimes get better players than him in return, even though his contract is awful and he's not exactly in his prime anymore. But on baseballtradevalues.com, as should be the case because it's true, Javier Baez's trade value is absolutely horrific. And so it's going to be nearly impossible to move off of his contract, at least not for any kind of pretty penny. And so with that being the case, I'm going to see if I can work out a trade for him, but I don't have high hopes for that. And so I'm going to make sure that every trade I make in this franchise is approved on baseballtradevalues.com per their realistic assessment of the different values of all the different players in both the majors and the minors. So that's going to be my approach there, and that's going to be how I am able to move players around. Free agency will give me some runway to try and make some stuff happen, along with the draft. I've never really focused much on the draft in any MLB The Show game that I've played, but I'm going to really try and sink some resources and time into that and try and, if not get a generational talent, at least start to build up some of the depth in this organization, because it is just kind of a mess. If I go a little further down, Riley Green will probably be our cornerstone. He just made his, really major league debut last year. And he burst on the scene, did pretty well in somewhat limited time, playing only 93 games. He has struggled with injuries a bit, so we'll see if that comes back to bite us or not, but he is definitely going to be a franchise cornerstone moving forward. pretty fast outfielder who can hit for contact and can hit for a little bit of power. Eric Haas is having a horrific season in real life right now, but he's one of our better position players on the Major League roster. Doesn't have a ton of potential, and he's already 30, so he'll probably just be a stopgap. He's an odd catcher / left fielder, and as borne out by his fielding rating of 54, he does not do either of them especially well. But he'll get some playing time at the beginning of the season, I'm sure. Michael Lorenzen, the Tigers traded in real life to the Phillies for a prospect at the deadline. Given that he is an expiring contract, I'll probably try to do the same. We'll see what the value is going to be like for someone like Lorenzen, and if we're able to get an equivalent prospect back like the Tigers got from the Phillies in real life. And then as we go down, I mean, you can see there are a good amount of like average to slightly above average players or prospects. I mean, we've gone a decent way down the list, and we're still only looking at 77s, which all things considered isn't that bad. But not a ton of A potential. Riley Green's been the only one so far. And in fact, aside from Miguel Cabrera, who's playing out his last season on a super bloated contract, I might add, we don't have another A prospect. So Cabrera, who's not a prospect, he's about to retire. And Riley Green, who's definitely young still and has a ton of promise, but he's also not really a prospect because he's part of the Major League roster and is going to be starting from day one in center field. So that's one of the big goals, is seeing if we can somehow acquire or draft an A prospect. Wilmer Flores, Jackson Jobe, both young starters. Jobe was somewhat infamously taken above guys like Marcelo Mayer in the draft a couple years ago. He kind of fell off right away because he was hurt a lot early on in his professional career, but he has since kind of returned to the fold. He's now listed as a top 100 prospect again in real life, so we'll see if he can develop. But really, I mean, from top to bottom, there's not a ton there. We have two former number 1 overall picks here right next to each other in Casey Mize and Spencer Torkelson. Casey Mize is out all year with, it was Tommy John, and then his back was hurt too, so he had some kind of surgery for that at the same time. I don't plan on playing him all year. Talent-wise, I don't even think he would necessarily make the rotation as it is right now. But since he's hurt in real life, I'll just keep him out too. He could probably just pitch in the minors, that's fine. And then Spencer Torkelson, another 1-1 pick who has not dealt with injury concerns, but has really not delivered on the promise that he seemed to have as maybe one of the best college hitters that America had seen in some time. Last year he was pretty awful, as you can see, hitting right around 200 with 8 homers. He got sent down to AAA at one point, and there's an argument to be made that, especially with him being a little older, because he was a college player, COVID ruined his ability to have like a normal minor league progression. So he'll be our starting first baseman. We'll see what happens. He has a B overall potential, so there is, I think, a little bit of malleability or pliability there with his ability to develop into a really good player, but we'll see. And then the rest of the roster, not a whole lot to write home about. So that's the position we're working from. So let's hop into this. I will leave GM contracts on, so if I do get fired, then I get fired. That's fine. That'll be the end of that. We're not doing a fantasy draft. We're not doing non-active free agents. I'm not going to control the CPU's roster. I am going to let the CPU trade. You may have noticed, and I mentioned it earlier, that the slider is going to be toned down a little bit, so hopefully they won't go too bananas. We are not going to ignore budgets. I will adhere to the budgets. I'm not going to have forced trades, and designated hitter is on for every game. That's cool. And we will have the ghost runner on second too. So heading into this, I want all of these to be manual, and I'm going to make sure I double check this once we get into the franchise, because I have seen situations where I was pretty sure that I selected manual for everything, and then all of a sudden the CPU was sending guys up and down and making changes to the lineup and doing all sorts of things that I didn't authorize them to do. But we want that all to be manual. We can start in the regular season. We don't need to play spring training. And looks like I have to create some save space. So let me look at that first and foremost. Looks like everything is manual there. We're going to leave critical situations off because what I'm going to do is I'm going to play every 5th game, but in doing so I'm going to play every 3, I'm going to play the first 3 innings in the first game that I play, and then the next game that I play, which will be 5-ish games later, I'll play the middle 3 innings, and then same thing, 4 or 5 games. Then the next game I'll play innings 7 through 9. So that's going to give me a chance to kind of see different elements of the roster. Certainly get some experience pitching with starters, some experience pitching with the bullpen guys, while also allowing us to progress through this at a pretty quick pace. That's my goal here. I plan on starting a Lions franchise in the coming weeks as Madden debuts, and I imagine that'll probably take more of my time and energy up. So I don't anticipate this as being some sort of play every pitch, go through the whole grind of a major league season. So that'll allow us to get through the season quicker and hopefully actually get through multiple seasons. So we don't have any scouting ability yet, but that is going to be something that I spend some time doing. Sponsorships. Maybe we can look at this a little bit. I've never really looked at this. So it looks like we can apply this sponsorship here. And we can only do that once. So, alright, why not? I don't know where that money goes, if it becomes part of the payroll or it just gets added to like the overall budget that we can spend on coaches and stuff. If we look at the contracts here, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Eduardo Rodriguez. In real life, it's been a very contentious situation with regard to his contract because he does have a player option after this year in real life. It doesn't look like that's baked into this game though, so I think we just got him for the next 3 years after this year at $15.4 million, which is not a bad price for someone who at times can pitch like he's a top echelon starter. Baez, we already talked about his albatross of a contract. Cabrera's money being freed up will be really nice. We can immediately put that money into use elsewhere, and we already have $53 million available. So we do have some flexibility. Scope will let go. He's on the major league roster right now, and I don't know if I'm even going to bother with that. We might just waive him and see if anybody claims him. But he's an expiring contract, so he'll be gone. We're either going to trade Lorenzen or, I guess depending on how he performs, maybe just not even bother. And then we have some relievers who are coming off the books at the end of this year, so that'll be good. A lot of times in rebuilds that I've done in the past, it's a goal to win right away and to try and make the team competitive immediately, and a lot of times, the stick skills end up playing a role in that, where it's like, I'm better at the game than the CPU, and I'm not maybe playing on the hardest difficulty or whatever in certain situations. So then you can take a team that is a lot less talented and end your season in the playoffs and contend for the World Series right away. Since we're not going to be playing that many games, and we are playing at legend difficulty anyways, I'll be interested to see how competitive we are, because the division does kind of suck. The AL Central in real life is easily the worst division in the league this year, and I think that might end up being true in our franchise too. So that gives us a better chance than we would otherwise have to contend, but I don't know. We'll see. As we see here though, a lot of our high 70s, low 80s talent is on not only veteran, or not veteran, like rookie minimum right now, but also has a renewable contract option. So that is nice. That will help us a lot with a lot of these guys like Wentz and Olsen. Interestingly, Skubal, because he is 26 and has been around for a little while, he's going to arbitration right after this year. So we still have him essentially quote unquote under contract for the next 3 years after this year, but we won't necessarily have any control over what that price is. Alex Lang is a tough one. In real life, he might be experiencing the yips or something right now. He went from looking like one of the best closers in the league through the first couple of months to being a complete disaster. It's almost like a Wild Thing situation if you've ever seen Major League. So we'll see how he simulates in real life. I acquired him with the Mets when I was doing the like low budget franchise with them, and he was great. I mean, he simulated fantastically. It's weird though because he doesn't have a fastball, so it's a little trickier to pitch with him, I've found. But we'll keep him for now. We'll see. I'm not going to make any trades off the bat. I might do some reassigning of guys to different levels of the minor leagues. But we'll keep this roster intact for a little while and see how things shake out. As we can see from the rankings, we're pretty much among the league's worst in every category besides speed, which is nice. Speed is actually something that I had in mind as potentially focusing on as a cornerstone of this rebuild, being able to steal bases and be aggressive on the base pass. So with players that we draft, I would like to be able to invest in more and more speed and maybe make that our kind of market inefficiency. So let's look at the lineups. Matt Vierling, who we got from the Phillies, along with Nick Maton for Gregory Soto this past offseason. I don't mind him being a leadoff hitter. He is pretty fast and his contact ratings aren't bad. I certainly want him to be one of our everyday players. Kerry Carpenter's ratings are not, I think, as reflective as his ability in real life as some of the other guys. He's had a pretty good season for the Tigers in real life, but for us, he's just sort of a fourth outfielder. Zach McKinstry can run a little bit, and he's versatile fielding wise, so that's a nice thing to have. Contact ratings aren't the greatest, and he certainly isn't going to be hitting for power, so we'll see if he can ever get on base. But all in all, this lineup is pretty pathetic. So let me see what we have elsewhere. Catching, the best two are on the Major League roster right now, so we'll roll with that. We got Torkelson and Cabrera, same thing, best two. Let's see, Wenceel Perez. I like that he's a switch hitter and he's B potential. Contact ratings aren't bad, speed isn't bad, fielding's not great, but it's not terrible. Because he's 23, I might just pull him up and put Scope on waivers and maybe have him play second base to start the year and just see how that goes. Similar idea here with Justin Henry Malloy. He's a B potential, 22, doesn't field great, doesn't run great. So I might pull him up. I guess we'll see how Nick Maton does in the game though. In real life, Nick Maton has been a complete disaster. He's been hitting like 170 or 180 and just butchering the ball at third base. So, I don't know. Lipschitz, 71 overall, C potential. Doesn't that just sum up the state of the Tigers organization? I'll probably just leave him where he's at. And maybe give Justin Henry Malloy a chance. I don't know, I like that McKinstry is versatile, but Malloy is too. So, I suppose we'll ride with that for now. Ryan Kreidler, he's not bad, but you can only play second and third. I would like for my backup infielders to also be able to play the outfield, just because if we don't have a ton of talent anyways, we might as well at least have versatile talent instead of non-versatile talent. So, yeah, that looks fine. Let's look at our pitchers. Looks like we got the best six really up right now. And one of them can pitch out of the bullpen. We can keep the rest of these guys where they're at. I don't think there's any issue with that. Matt Manning, he was another guy, kind of like Casey Mize. He wasn't drafted as highly, but a lot of Tigers fans have had really big expectations and hopes for him, but he's been hurt a lot. Even when he's pitched, he does not miss bats very well. So I don't really see any reason to have him on their Major League roster. He's certainly not one of the top 6, 7 guys. So I might move him down. And let's see if there's anybody. No, nobody really in the bullpen that I would want to call up. So I guess we could have Manning just kind of be a long reliever. Bo Brisky. It's a pretty good variety of pitches. My favorite pitch to see on a pitcher that I'm using is a sinker. It just seems like that's really effective at getting ground balls and keeping the ball in the ballpark in this game. Ty Madden has a pitcher of a lefty, but he is a righty, so that's a little deceiving. But alright, that's fine for now. So let me go ahead and, before I fill out the rosters, let me... Honestly, we can just designate scope for assignment, that's fine. And move Wenceel up to the majors. So he'll be our starting second baseman. Well, no, I guess Andy Ibanez will probably start at second, and then Wenceel can just fill in for him or for Baez. Yeah, it's fine. Scope was coming off the bench anyway, so we can just do that. Alright, so lineup. I don't know how much this matters really, just in the sense of we don't have a ton of talent that is significantly better than other talent. As long as Baez is going to be here, we might as well have him hitting higher in the order. And we also might as well platoon a decent amount in terms of not just guys on the bench and guys who are starting, but also we should probably alternate righty-lefty. Green can hit second. We want him to be our best player. And he is one of our most talented. So he can hit second. Vierling can hit leadoff. That's fine. Baez third. Torkelson fifth. Alright, here's where we can start to mess around with stuff. But do, again, pretty good speed. Contact is alright. Fielding's alright. Haas's hitting ability is actually pretty good, so I'll move him up a little bit. Yeah, I think this is fine. We can have Cabrera hit 8th. I won't bother setting the no DH lineups just because we'll never play without a DH. And then against lefties, that's one thing I don't like, is both McKinstry and Carpenter are both lefty only. It looks like Wenceel can hit lefties decently too, so let's do this. I think Ibanez, so he's versatile. We are not going to play Cabrera in the field at all. There's no need for that. So let's do this. Let's put Wenceel in. And let's also, yeah, let's do this. Rogers can hit for some pop against lefties, so let's try and get creative here. Let's move Haas to left field because he's a catcher / left fielder. Cabrera will play designated hitter for sure. No reason to have him in the field at all. I guess he can play first if Torkelson or whoever needs an off day. It's not that big of a deal, but rather not have him involved in any kind of running situation. So that means we'd only have Riley Green as a lefty only against lefties. And even just for, like, regardless of what guys' splits are, because I think that has become almost a little bit overrated. The idea that, oh, if there's a lefty hitter, he shouldn't be facing a lefty pitcher because that's just, you know, that's bad news, that's trouble. I think a lot of the stats of guys bear out that that is not the reality at all. But for me, when I'm hitting in this game, I feel like that does very much come into play, and that is absolutely a factor. So I do like to have the righty against lefty, the lefty against righty if I can get it. So let's do Vierling, let's do Green. We can put Baez there, Torkelson. Let's move Rogers up just because he's got that pop. We can hit him over Haas too. And then let's try and break this up a little bit just by having a switch hitter in there, Wenzel. And he only plays short and second, so I think Ibanez will play third. That's fine. And that should be good. Well, I should say I don't know if good is the word, but that's what we're rolling with. So that's fine there. Let's see the rotation. This is a little more straightforward. Rating wise, it makes sense. I think Skubal in reality is probably better than maybe all the rest of these guys, with Eduardo Rodriguez being probably the other guy that would have a say in that discussion, but that's fine. We'll have a couple long relievers. Yeah, bullpen sets up pretty standardly, a couple lefties out of the pen. What we may do though, especially because Lorenzen is pretty good, it's weird because Wentz is an 80, but I don't feel like I trust him that much. I'm inclined almost to have Lorenzen be a starter and have Wentz out of the bullpen just so I have another lefty arm back there. He's got great break, and I think Skubal and Rodriguez I both see as more of long-term starters. If Wentz develops, then he can absolutely be in that category too, but I think I'll roll with that. So, like I said, I don't think good is the proper word to describe what that is, but it will have to do for now. Training, let's see. This is all automatically set up, and I think this is fine. I don't know how much of a difference these selections make anyways, but yeah, all these things seem to fit whatever the different players need to improve at. So let's just double check our settings and make sure those are still all good. We got classic, that's cool, and then we got legend, and we got timing. So that's cool. Let's go to our sliders, double check those, should be fine. They look good. All right, great. So I'll give this one more save, and then we'll hop into our opening day matchup with the Rays, play the first couple innings, and see how that shakes out. I'll have to readjust to playing in Tropicana Field too. My last franchise, when I was controlling the Rays, we built a new ballpark. All right, so the Rays are rocking their normal unis, so will we. Play at the Trop. Like I said, we are going to do quick counts. Turnbull will get the start. And let's see how opening day plays out for the 2023 Tigers. So here we are in Tropicana Field for this opening day matchup. On the mound for the Rays is Shane McClanahan, one of the better young pitchers in the league. Actually, in real life, just recently got ruled out for the rest of the season. So hopefully in the virtual world he can stay healthy. Tough break for him and for the Rays. Vierling leads off, good contact on a circle change that sat right in the middle of the zone, but nothing much to do with it except ground out. Got another 2-strike count here on Riley Green. Not a huge fan of the lefty-lefty matchup, just in terms of my general hitting preferences, but looks like we won that battle. Base hit for Green here. And it looks like Jose Siri just got hurt. That's a bummer. Great defensive center fielder for the Rays, but Manuel Margot is not too shabby defensively either. Green does run really well, but he does not steal very well. He's got a steal rating of 0. So I'll probably pass on that for the time being. See if Baez can cook something up. Loop and curve, smoke it to center. Not going to test Margot's arm. But we do have something brewing here in the top of the first. Big opportunity for Torkelson to potentially come through. After a pretty nightmarish rookie season, it'd be great to get him off to a good start in 2023. Got a good hitters count here, 3-1. And I'll take ball 4. Clanahan hasn't really settled in yet. He's either thrown pitches right down the middle or been kind of outside the zone. Oh, that's a good circle change. Totally fooled me. Was way out in front of that one. I don't think I went, but I think everyone who checks swings would self-diagnose as not having gone around. 2-2. Ah, good fastball. It's interesting. I'd be curious to find out from developers of the game if there is such thing as like a spin rate on pitchers four-seam fastballs in the game where it causes more or less movement. Ooh, Eric Haas comes through with a big hit down the line. Because I do genuinely feel like some guys... Oh, I screwed up, though, with my base running. We do get 2 runs across regardless. I feel like some guys' fastballs, even though they're a four-seam fastball, do have some movement on them, and some guys are straight. And it could just be a total, like, Mandela effect, like, made-up realism on my part, but that McClanahan fastball had some movement to it, I felt like. But as we said, Haas comes through with a big single down the line. We run into the third out at third base, which you never want to do, but really glad to see us scratch 2 runs across to start the season and start the game. Nice strikeout for Turnbull there. High and inside fastball. Proved to be a reliable weapon. It's been kind of one of my go-to pitches as I've been playing this game. Now I'm interested to see, now that I'm on classic pitching instead of analog, how well I'm able to control it. Harold Ramirez bloops one to center, but Green is able to haul it in. Maybe some foreshadowing of potential transactions in the future. I would very much like to acquire Harold Ramirez if I could. He's versatile. He can play infield and outfield. He hits really well against lefties and not too bad against righties, as Turnbull finishes off the first. Younger player who's on a pretty cheap contract, I would imagine. And I'll be interested to see what his trade value is on baseball trade values, because I imagine it's decent, but probably not at an astronomical price. And I think he would be a nice kind of cheap cornerstone to build around, not as like a franchise player, bad at bat by me, I don't know what I was looking for there, but as a solid, reliable piece who could hit maybe 300 or so. This is Miggy's last time, assuming he retires after this year in the game, last time visiting Tropicana Field, barring a miracle postseason run. So he's been getting showered with rocking chairs and assorted other knickknacks throughout the year. Don't think the show has baked in that cutscene, but I suppose you never know. 2 strikeouts to start the second. Andy Ibanez fouls one away. Ibanez was a waiver wire acquisition in the offseason. One of many new additions to the Tigers roster who can play multiple positions. Matt Vierling, Nick Maton among the others. Pretty much a perfect 3-2 pitch there, location-wise. I'm glad we were able to spoil it. And another good one. That one just ended up tailing outside, but we do enough with it to bloop it to left. So 4 hits already here in the second. All singles though. Good Uncle Charlie there from McClanahan. Oof, that circle change. Man, pulled the string on that one. Let's see if Turnbull can keep his positive momentum going. Had a great bottom of the first. I think the trouble I might have with classic pitching, and we'll see how it bears out, but with quick counts, sometimes you can be down 2-1 or down 3-1 in the count right from the jump. And I could see myself walking a lot more hitters because of that. Hasn't bit us through the first couple of batters here. But it's all luck of the draw, I guess. I'm not totally sure how the quick counts are determined, like how, if they are randomized, how they are randomized. As Rosarena goes deep to right. And the Rays are on the board. Anecdotally, it kind of seems like on the higher difficulties, you're more likely to get 2-1 and 3-1 counts pitching as opposed to hitting, but I've experienced the same thing from the plate a decent amount of times too, so that's probably just hogwash. Maybe it is just truly random. So first hit of the game for the Rays is a big one. Big fly there. Nice stretch by Torkelson at first. A low throw from Javi Baez is something that Tiger fans are not shocked to see. He is a very good defensive shortstop, but throws erratically more often than not, it seems like. Isaac Paredes, a polarizing figure in Tiger circles because the Tigers traded Austin Meadows for him a couple years ago, and Paredes immediately became one of the best third basemen in the league, at least hitting-wise. Turnbull strikes him out there, though. So we head to the third, our last inning of play today. Green with a bloop is falling quick. Oh, not quick enough. Almost got a Texas leaguer out of it. But Green is retired. Baez is retired quickly there. Good timing, but just popped it up. So McClanahan's pitch count is still a touch high. It's almost at 60 here in the third. But I think we've helped him get it back in order a little bit with our quick start to the inning. Ooh, good slider. Alright, Torkelson has worked a full count. See if he can draw his second walk of the day. He can.
Now batting, catcher, Jake Rogers.
Jake Rogers doesn't normally hit for a high average, but does have some pop in his bat. We'll see with a 3-1 count if McClanahan hangs one here. Nope, he's lost control here all of a sudden. I think that's 5 straight balls at least, maybe 6. And now a 2-1 count on Haas. Oof, dead red. Haas smokes it to center. I think I'm going to try it. We're in there. All the runners advance too. CPU never hits the cutoff man. I wonder, I can't imagine that's a difficulty like setting, because I mean it's obviously not an option to choose. But even on Legend, I don't think I've seen them hit the cutoff man once on a throw it's like a play at the plate situation. Big opportunity for Wenceel Perez for his first major league hit here. Could drive in 2 more. No, I chased. I think that's my biggest weakness, is the high fastball. So we do add an insurance run. Eric Haas with his 3rd RBI of the day already. Josh Lowe up for Tampa, and not to be confused with Brandon Lau, their second baseman. We have 2 starters who have the exact same spelling of their last name but different pronunciations. Josh's brother, Nathaniel, plays for the Rangers. He's a first baseman. Yeah, so lost command there. 3 straight balls out of the zone. Gives the Rays a man on first, and now Turnbull seems to be struggling with his command. That was a big strike to get in there. I wonder if Lowe will take off here. He's got good speed and good steal ability, so it wouldn't be shocking, but looks like he's staying put for now. Green's able to run that one down from Margot. I think Eric Haas was a lot closer to it, but probably wasn't too keen to handle that, being a catcher who's playing left field. Big strikeout for Turnbull there. So let's see if we can avoid any damage from the leadoff walk. Lowe did take off on that pitch, and I think he was going to be in there had the pitch reached home plate. It's not going again, though. Ooh, good take by Ramirez. Not taking a lead. Ramirez checks his swing, so big 3-2 pitch here. Yeah, another ball. Well, we're in a bit of trouble in the 3rd. I'm going to send Chris Fetter out for whatever that's worth. And works like a charm. First pitch, we get Diaz to roll over to Torkelson. Or I guess Cabrera is actually playing first base. I said Torkelson with the stretch earlier too, but yeah, all right, why not? So 3-1 after 3. And now let's sim things out. So we'll go quick manage. We'll just go 1/2 inning at a time. I've seen a couple different versions of this. I've seen versions where the computer makes all sorts of substitutions on their own. They handle the bullpen. They do all things that one would consider normal. And then I've seen situations where they just leave the starting pitcher in no matter what. So I'll keep an eye on it pretty closely. It looks like Turnbull got through the 4th without any trouble. Energy's still good, so should be all right. The Rays do have a new pitcher in. We don't get much of anything going. Looked like maybe a hit or 2, but nothing else. Turnbull's through the 6th. Let's see, I wonder... Probably can't tell his pitch count right now, but energy's not bad, so gets through another inning. Alright, yeah. Do we risk it? Yeah, alright, we get through 8. I think we can comfortably say that Turnbull has done his job, but also it's probably high time to bring in someone else. So we bring in Alex Lang. He closes it out. I don't know if Hinch was going to bring anybody in or not, but fortunately we don't have to worry about it. So a nice opening day win there. We'll take it. There's actually no more offense after we finished playing. There was a run in every inning and then zeros for the final 6. So good stuff there. We'll take it. Absolutely. And that's going to do it for our first episode. So next time we will set our scouting preferences and kind of look at the different areas or different prospects that we're going to be keyed in on. And we'll also play our home opener against the Red Sox. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you again soon.